Good evening. I'm your host, Vivian King, and this is Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Our topic tonight is going to be search and seizure and the detention of a citizen. And I want to bring you real, true crime stories and explain the criminal justice to you in Harris County, and hopefully someone will be educated in this process. Tonight, my guests are attorney Patrick Ngwolo, who is here tonight, and one of his clients, Robert Anderson. And we're going to take you through a real crime story. Now, some things might be exaggerated to make our points, but it is real. And luckily, Robert went through the process, a very grueling process, but justice prevailed in the end and he was found not guilty. So I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of what happened in Robert's case. Robert and his girlfriend went to visit her mother in Anahuac. And when they left Anahuac, they went home to their home in Baytown. And later that night, Robert went out to visit one of his buddies in an apartment complex called the Bayview Apartments. And as he left the apartment complex, he got in his vehicle. Nothing unusual about his vehicle. It's a 2005 Kia. As he's sitting in his vehicle, a police officer or a security guard knocks on his window, drags him out of his car, searches him, and accuses him of looking like a suspect that they were looking at in the area for looking in cars. There's nothing illegal about looking in cars, but that's what they thought he was doing, was looking in cars. Now, Robert's a 35-year-old man with a job and is basically a stable person. They also said it looked like he might have been violating a curfew. And as we know, curfews are for young people, 18 and under. This search of his body for weapons turns into handcuff, detention, and basically almost a year of going to court. I want to just jump right in and start talking about this. He was asked why he was being searched. The officer said, oh, okay, now you're resisting arrest. So now he has two charges. He has to make two bonds. They accuse him of having an illegal substance in his pocket. But remember, the jury found him not guilty. And he had to make a $5,000 bond for that case, and he had to make a $5,000 bond for resisting arrest. So it's interesting how this case turned from a simple visiting a buddy to a suspect to going to jail to probably $10,000 later to prove that he was not guilty. I want to explore how that process goes. So I'm going to start off by just asking Robert, did I kind of say what happened? Is that kind of what happened?
Yes, pretty much, yeah. You pretty much covered all bases.
Now talk to me about going to visit your friend. Tell me about visiting your friend. Is this a person that you would visit frequently? Is he a good friend of yours?
Yeah, we pretty close, been close for, I know, at least about 15 years or so. And he's been staying in the complex, I know, for about 2 or 3 years, probably between 2 and 3 years. And I go over there on a regular basis, yeah.
So it was nothing unusual for you to visit him and to walk to your car?
No, not at all.
Did you see anything that looked suspicious when you walked to your car in that apartment complex?
No, I mean, it's the same thing I see every day, cars and people moving around.
But nothing that looked out of the ordinary?
No, not to me.
All right, so talk about this. So when you got in your car, what happened? Are you fidgeting around, playing on your cell phone?
Well, actually, I was coming out of my friend's house, and I seen this vehicle approaching me, and it happens to be the security guard that patrols the apartments at night, and he approaches me about a curfew, and I kind of told him, you know, okay. So I'm getting into my car.
Talk to me about that. What do you say? What did he say to you? As best you can remember, it doesn't have to be exact, about a curfew.
Well, I mean, that was the only thing he brought to my attention as I was walking to my car. He was like, do you know it's a curfew? And I'm like, well, yeah, you know. And I didn't really say too much about it because I'm 35 years old.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, I always thought curfew was for children, kids, underage kids.
Right.
So I didn't, you know, I didn't really think too much about it. I just kept on going about my business, in other words.
So then you went on and got in your car, and what happened?
Yes, ma'am. Well, as I got in my car, I crunked my car, and I could still see in my rear view, well, in my rear view mirror, I see the truck is still behind my car to where I can't move, I can't back up, I can't do anything. So about that time, I hear a knock on my window as I'm in my car. So I like kind of put a crack in my window, and I asked what was going on. And it happened to be a guy in clothes. I didn't know it was an officer at the time until I got out of the car. But now I can say it was an officer at the car. And he wanted ID for what, I don't know. At the time, you know, I didn't know why he wanted ID.
Right.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's 10:30 at night, you know. I just left a friend's house. I don't know what's going on. I'm kind of, you know, nervous, shook up a little bit. I mean, who wouldn't be shook up when a police approach him and not knowing what's going on, not getting explained anything? You know, I mean, it was an ongoing process.
How was the police officer dressed?
He wasn't dressed in uniform. He had like civilian clothes on, a T-shirt and shorts.
Now, is that the same officer that stopped you and talked about the curfew, or is it two different officers?
No, it's two different officers.
Now, were they working together?
Just so happened that night, I guess so. I don't know if the security guard called the officer, the Baytown officer, or how it went down.
Okay. So tell me what happened after that.
Well, once he asked me to step out the car, I stepped out the car, and he asked me for ID. But I told him my ID was in my car, so he let me get the ID out of my car, and I handed it to him. So we were walking to the back of my car, and he's running my name through, you know. I mean, doing the procedure that any officer would do, run your name through, whatnot. So I guess it came back clear, no warrants, no, you know, nothing, anything like that. And so he asked me if I had anything on me, and I told him no. Well, he was like, well, put your hands against this car. It wasn't even my car. It was a car parked next to mine. He asked me to put my hands against. So I'm like, okay, well, so where's this going? You know, well, I mean, why are you asking me to do that? And it came down to it that he ended up searching me. And while he was searching me, I'm steady asking questions. As I turned around and asked a question, he felt like I was resisting. And, I mean...
So without messing your mic up, show me what you did. Your hands were just against the car.
Right.
And just because you turned around, he said,
yeah,
you
right. My hands against the car like this, and I kind of turned around like, what's going on? And he said, oh, you're resisting. I'm like, resisting? Man, and he's like, well, just shut up and turn around, you know. So I turned around, and I'm still asking questions because I want to know what's going on.
Right.
So, you know, after he said turn around and shut up, I'm steady talking, though, you know. I mean, I want to know what's going on. I feel like I'm not the guy. Whatever y'all got on mine, I'm not the guy.
Right.
So he ended up trying to take my feet from under me.
Wow.
To take me to the ground. So he wasn't successful on that. But, you know, by this time, my blood is boiling.
Right, it should be.
Yeah, so it came down to him and another officer taking me down. We was there for a numerous amount of time. So I guess around about 10 minutes or so.
Now, when you say another officer taking you down, you mean to the ground?
Yes, it was another officer that pulled up on the scene while he had, don't let me forget that he had one hand in handcuffs already.
Okay.
Well, so I'm pretty much under arrest already.
Definitely.
So as the other officer come up, he's saying that, you know, put your other hand behind your back, put your other hand behind your back. I'm like, for what? You know, and as soon as I say that, that's when the other officer grabbed me around my neck and kind of take me to the ground. So, you know, I'm on the ground now. They detained, in other words. And
excuse me, let me see if someone's calling in. Oh, it's not.
Okay.
It's not, sorry.
But like I say, I'm on the ground now, so it's an officer on top of me. This officer got my hand. He got one hand behind my back, and I got the other hand on me, and he steady asking for my other hand. I'm like, you got this officer on me, how can I give you my other hand? You know, I mean, that's what it was for us, the arrest part, you know.
Okay, how did that make you feel to have you in a position where you are on the ground and then all of a sudden, I mean, you know, they're basically tussling with you?
Well, I mean, kind of make you feel like an animal. You
right.
know, I mean,
I would imagine. It would make me feel like an animal.
Being hog-tied or something, you know?
Right. So they got you on the ground, and then what happens after that?
Well, they got me on the ground. They get me handcuffed, and don't get me wrong. I'm still on the ground the whole time that the other officers pull up on the scene, and you know they're talking about this and that, what happened, you know, why I'm here and what happened to me for being there. But I can hear them say something about they remember me from prior arrest or something, you know. I can hear the officers talking. I'm on the ground still, on my stomach. I'm trying to roll over, and they like in a group talking about, look at him, he's still resisting. He's still resisting.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
And how much do you weigh approximately?
Approximately 260.
So you have officers saying that you're resisting arrest, but all you're doing is on the ground handcuffed.
On the ground handcuffed. I'm trying to roll back to, you know, to my stomach or my side. Well, I'm on my stomach. I'm trying to roll to my side, to my back.
Right, because that's not a natural position.
Right, because I'm uncomfortable. I'm on my face like this.
Right.
You know, for the whole time. I'm already handcuffed. I mean, why not pick me up and let me feel comfortable, you know?
Right.
I'm still on the ground while they're talking. So, like I said, I can hear them talking about they knew me from, you know, from prior arrest in Anahuac or something like that. Because one officer actually said he used to patrol in Anahuac.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you know, had they ever seen you before?
No, I've never seen the officer or the security guard before.
Okay.
Wow.
So how long did they leave you on the ground in this animal position?
For at least 5 minutes, I know.
And then what did they do with you after that? What
Well,
happened?
after they got me off the ground, they put me in a patrol car.
Did they tow your vehicle?
Yes, they did.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. That's some more money.
That's more money, right. Right. They towed your vehicle.
Yeah.
And then you went to jail.
Right.
So how did you make contact with someone to let them know you were in
Well,
jail?
when I got to the jailhouse, they, you know, I guess the sergeant or whoever, I think it was a sergeant working at the jail at the time, he asked me if I needed to make a phone call. And I made my phone call, and I got in touch with some family members. Well, my girlfriend.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay in jail?
I guess till I went to jail about 11:30 that night, and got out. Well, I got transferred to Harris County at about 11 o'clock that next morning.
So when did you get out?
Oh, I got out Monday morning about 5 o'clock.
So you were in jail 2 nights?
2 nights. From
Wow.
Saturday till Monday morning, 5 o'clock Monday morning.
Wow. Yeah. And your girlfriend still had to post a $10,000 bond?
Yes, she did. Yeah.
And then from there, you had to hire a lawyer.
Right, right.
And so that's more money.
Right.
And what type of work do you do?
Oh, refinery. Yeah.
Do you work like shift work or Monday through Friday? What's your
This is
work
Monday
schedule?
through Friday, some weekends, you know.
What hours do you work?
From 8 to 4.
So you have to take off work to go to court?
Right, right.
And I looked at your court records. You went to court about 13 to 14 times.
Right.
And this happened, what, back in April?
Yeah, 7 months ago, the beginning of April.
So you've been taking off
Yeah.
for 7 months. Well, how does that work with your work schedule? Because most people don't have 13 or 14 days they can take off.
Well, you know, unfortunately, I got some guys that understand, you know.
So your coworkers understood, or your boss understood?
Yeah, my coworkers understood.
Because that's like that burns up a whole vacation.
Yeah, pretty
really.
much. That's what it did.
You had to use your vacation to go to court. So that's a loss of money. Pay to park to go downtown. So what made you decide to fight it by going to trial? Because I've been a trial lawyer for 20 years, and it's my understanding and observation that maybe only about 10% of all cases go to trial. Most people plead guilty. They get tired of coming to court. They say, you know, just give me a fine and let me get out of here, or let me do some time. Were they offering you jail time?
Yeah, they offered me jail time, but like I say, I mean, I was innocent from the beginning to the end. So, I mean, anything they offered me besides a dismiss or thrown out, I wasn't gonna take.
Right.
You know, I was looking for justice.
Right. And you thought you hadn't been treated properly. Is that
That's
correct?
right. That's right.
And so you went to trial, and you were vindicated. You one of the few people that were vindicated. Why do you think that the police officers would really mess with you? Do you think that there was some ulterior motive, or? I mean, because you look like, I mean, you don't look like a kid that's in a gang, or you know, any type of, you don't fit any profile of anybody that I think that would be harassed.
I don't think I can think I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, man. I mean, first the officer and the security guard, I don't know what they had on their mind that night, but I wasn't the guy.
Okay.
I was not the guy.
It sounds like you were not the guy that night. All right, well, you know, one of the things that I want to talk about is that the Constitution of the United States allows a person to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. You can be free. I mean, there has to be probable cause to arrest, to detain someone, and you have a right, if you're not being treated properly, to fight that in court. Our Texas Constitution says the same thing, and there has to be probable cause to believe that a crime has occurred. And the appropriate thing for a lawyer to do is to fight that for you. So I understand that you made sure to seek a good lawyer that you were comfortable with, and he fought your case, and we have him here, Patrick Ngwolo. So let me let you talk about that, Patrick. And say your name correctly, because you know I'm old and don't say names right. So to say your name correctly.
Thank you, Vivian, for having me. My name is Patrick Ngwolo. You know, I think, you know, you've been around the criminal justice system twice or 3 times as long as I've been around. But, you know, oftentimes clients don't want to fight on constitutional issues like searches and seizures. And oftentimes the clients don't even know about it.
Right.
They figure, you know, if they got me, they got me. You know, they don't ever, you know, most of our clients aren't empowered to know what the law is. And so one of the things I try to do is to, good, bad, or indifferent, educate my clients about the law, the legal system, their rights. Some of them choose, you know, say, you know what, I know I got that right, but you know, but then Robert here, and to his credit, you know, heard what I had to say, believed that he could win justice, and put his faith in me, and the rest is history. And with Robert's case, I mean, he was guilty of walking in an apartment complex while black, you know. And so, God willing, we had a jury that I believed was fair, would listen to constitutional issues, wouldn't, you know, they're not closed-minded, and we were able to present a clear case and basically show that Robert was innocent.
Let me ask you this. What was the makeup of your jury?
My jury was all women. That might have been a great thing. But
well, a lot of times they say when it's all women, they can't make a decision. So that was an old wives' tale they used to say to me when I was a prosecutor many years ago. Right. So, but I think women make very good decisions.
I think they made
being a woman myself.
Right. I think they make great decisions.
And what was the racial mix of the women?
We had the foreman was a black woman. We had a Hispanic woman. We had an Asian woman. And we had I think three Caucasian ladies.
So we had 3 Caucasian women, 1 Asian woman, 1 Hispanic woman, and 1 black woman.
Yes, we did.
And this is a misdemeanor case. And in misdemeanor cases, that's cases that the maximum punishment is a year in jail and a $4,000 fine. You only have 6 jurors. So the judge might bring over 24, 25 citizens who come to jury duty, but of that, only 6 will be selected to actually be on the jury. So, and that's the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony. If it's a felony case, then judges bring over 65 people, and you're going to eventually end up with 12 people on a jury. And that's when the punishment is a 1 year or higher for a felony. So we're dealing with misdemeanors, and Robert was charged with 2 misdemeanors, resisting arrest and possession of a contraband, some controlled substance that was alleged and that he disagreed with and fought vehemently his victory. So, now that we got that little housekeeping part out, so tell me, did you file a motion to suppress? One of the things you're supposed to do is file a motion to suppress illegally seized evidence outside of the Constitution when it's illegally seized. And did you file a motion in this case?
Filed a motion to suppress and filed a brief that discussed the legal issues for why we believe the evidence should have been suppressed, and gave to the court numerous cases before the trial, during the trial.
Caller? Is there a caller there?
Yes, the caller's here.
Okay. Do you have any questions, please? We'd love to answer your questions if you have any.
Yes, I was calling. I'm listening to your show, and I have a few questions regarding some of the things that I heard. And one has to do with, since this person was found not guilty, is there any type of restitution back to him for all of the charges that he was charged with, the money that he's out of pocket, and the money that he paid for his attorney? Then I have one additional question.
No, ma'am. There is nothing that can happen other than the fact that now the law allows him to file a motion to get his case expunged within 30 days. It does cost money. He'll have to pay his lawyer and pay filing fees to the court. So a lot of times people are broke by the time they finish their trials, but he can get it expunged, and that will, it usually takes several months before it's effective, but it would actually, it's a court order that tells the court system, the civil system, the police officers, the FBI, the National Crime Information System, the Texas Crime Information System, everybody to erase it off of their computers. And he does have a right to have that happen kind of automatically with less fees if he does it within 30 days. So that's all he can do. He cannot fight, but it's a great question because toward the end of our discussion, part of my discussion on all of these cases will be the cost to society and the cost to the person, and whether we believe that a case like this could be handled in a way other than taking someone to jail. So that's a good question. Please ask your second question.
Into my next question, because it's my understanding before these cases go to trial, they go before a grand jury. And what happened in the grand jury process that did not get this stopped before he had to go all the way to a full-blown trial?
This is a great question. Only felonies go to grand juries. So that the Texas Constitution says that anyone charged with a felony offense has to have their case presented to a grand jury within 90 days. Then an indictment is read. And a grand jury, it's a secret proceeding in which a prosecutor goes in, and it's 12 volunteers that sit for 3 months. The jury, the prosecutor goes in, reads the police report, and the grand jurors vote, and they decide, is there probable cause to indict this person? Is it more likely than not that it happened? That's the standard. And it has to be at least 9 people out of the 12 have to vote, yes, we believe it's more probable than not that it happened. And then they do what they call, the foreman of the grand jury will put a stamp on it and call it a true bill, and then you're indicted, and then you go back to court. Or the grand jury can find it's less probable than not and actually no bill it, and then the case is over at that point. That's only for felony offenses where you can go to prison for a year or more. For misdemeanor cases, it's probable cause by a judge only. And that's the problem. And that's why if you go down to the criminal courthouse, the misdemeanor courts are just, they have, I mean, it's like cattle herding. It's just so many people down there because a police officer can say it. Every judge has the pressure of being tough on crime, and, you know, 99% of the time they're going to just indict the case. I mean, they're going to find probable cause and stay there. A judge could have found no probable cause, but it's kind of hard to do that without a full-blown hearing in a case like his, because you have a cop saying that this 6'2" big guy resisted arrest. So the judge doesn't know anything but the police report. So the judge found probable cause, and that was the right thing to do in this situation because they didn't know. What he needed to do was go to his next step and have a trial, which I'm proud of him for doing. Thank you for calling. So anyway, what were you saying, Patrick?
So I think we were at the, what were we talking about? We were talking about the arrest.
Yes. About the motion to suppress and trying to give that to a jury. Let me lead in by saying that one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show is so that we could have real talk, real conversations about what happens in our criminal justice system. So if young people are listening, they'll learn to walk within the law and also know how the law is supposed to work. So the Constitution, all of our constitutions, Texas, United States, and the Code of Criminal Procedure, which is statutes passed by our legislators, say you have a right to be left alone unless you're committing a crime. Right. And so that's why we want to discuss this. We're talking about detention. What does it take to detain a person, and what is the legal standard? So Patrick, Robert's lawyer, said, look, I've looked at this, and I just think that they were looking for a black man looking in cars, which in and of itself is not a crime even then. You can't arrest somebody for looking in cars. Right. That's legal to do that. It might be suspicious for police officers to watch you. So if that person does break in the car, you know, the cop is ready to pounce on you,
Right.
but it's not illegal. So that's no reason to detain someone, because you can't stop someone and say, oh, what's in your head? Were you about to break in? I mean, you can't get arrested for what you're about to do.
Right.
So talk about that.
So we filed the motion. We filed a brief discussing the issues. We gave the court, you know, numerous cases to back up our proposition that, hey, they had no reasonable suspicion to stop him. I mean, he's a black man. That's not enough.
Right.
Not in America in 2011. Maybe America in 1960, but not in 2011.
Right.
We said, hey, even after that, there was no reason to search. And so we filed...
May I interrupt you for another call?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
You may.
Yes, caller.
Yes, I'm calling with a question because I keep hearing y'all say that what police are not supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do, and what they're not, but they do it every day. Yet no attorney, no district attorney, no judge, no mayor, and nobody else does anything about what they know these people are out here doing. Here you got police that will sit here and stop somebody walking down the street and say that because he's in a high-crime neighborhood, they're justified in pulling this person over, searching this person, patting him down, making them empty their pockets, taking their shoes off, right out here in the middle of the street. But y'all don't do nothing or say nothing about that. And you expect for us to continue to maintain some type of sense of peace around these people. Man, people get tired of this stuff, and then y'all that got the degrees and stuff that's supposed to protect, y'all don't do it. So tell me what we supposed to do then.
We are supposed to take it to our city council. We're supposed to have discussions like we're having tonight so that people feel empowered to do something about it. I mean, the police work for us, and it's thousands of people that work for the police department. We don't want the bad apples there. We want the good apples, but we don't want the bad apples.
But y'all know that there are bad apples, and y'all see the bad apples. Y'all see these people on the tape that sit there and beat up this 15, 16-year-old boy. This man jumped up in the air and jumped down on top of this little boy. And then you see all these police standing around there that's looking at it. Not one of them was charged as an accessory or an accomplice to it.
I understand your...
and whoop somebody and do that. I'm just as guilty as they are.
I understand. And I understand your frustration, but I would love it if you would stay on topic. So is there a question that you have about this particular case tonight? Because we want to explore it. That's why we're having this discussion, so that people know their rights.
You just made the comment that if any young people are watching and they want to learn and they want to know, that they can call and express their concerns and their issues, and that's what I'm doing.
I appreciate it.
I'm sorry if I got off topic.
Okay. All righty. So do you have another question about, do you think
No,
that it was fair that he gets stopped because he's black in an apartment complex?
Well, yes. Well, that's what I'm talking about. I live in an apartment complex.
But don't you think that it was appropriate for him to fight it and go to court? And because so many people that I represent feel like, oh, it's no justice. If I go to court, those people are just going to do what they want to do. The good news is, and what I'm trying to bring to you is, if you fight the police enough times and the police do things wrong enough and he files a complaint against the cop, police officers do get fired, but you do have to fight them. It's not fair, but we want to open the discussion, so hopefully things will change. Thank you for calling. Okay, finish telling me about that.
So we filed a motion, and as Mr. Anderson could tell you, it was an uphill battle. We're in front of a judge, you know, to her credit, Judge Rowena Young, for whatever reason, could not see that there was no reasonable suspicion in this case. We argued it several times, all throughout the trial, and still wasn't getting any traction with that judge.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, did the officer in the police report or testify that there was anything other than the fact that he was black and that somebody had been looking in cars? Did they articulate anything that was actually sounded like a crime?
In fact, during cross-examination, the officer himself said, I asked the officer, you didn't have any other information other than the fact, any other identifier other than the fact that he was a black male, correct? Took him a minute, but finally he said yes. So these were his own words, black male, that's it. And so we brought it to a judge, and it took a minute. Didn't really get what we thought we should have gotten out of it. But ironically, and I think it was God's will, by God's permission, the jury saw past that and went ahead and threw the case out.
Excuse me, we're going to interrupt for just a quick call. Is there a question, caller?
Yes, well, I'd like to make a statement, a comment on what's going on with this other gentleman's case. This is Charlene. How you doing, Vivian?
Hey, how are you?
Fine. I think that people, it doesn't matter what race they are, has a right to walk in any apartment complex. This is the United States. This is America. That's the first thing. And the second thing is there are lots of people, black people, that look white. So are they going to go out and look for just a dark-skinned black people that you could identify? It could be a light-skinned black person that's walking in the neighborhood. Do they have more rights? I mean, if a person is in a neighborhood as an apartment complex, they have that right. Give them a break. These officers do need to be taken care of. I've witnessed myself officers going in the back of their cars, and they have little trays with drugs in them, little white plastic trays with little sections in them, because I saw them. I walked up on one case when he was getting ready to plant some on a gentleman, and he put it back, and he told me to go on down the street. So I think that everybody needs to stick together, and as you say, fight the police, because they have good ones out there, but the bad ones, we need to get them straight or get them off their job.
Right, and I'm adamant about that because we pay their salaries, and it frustrates me when police officers and the unions will defend one or two bad apples when there's so many great cops that you can be highlighting and spotlighting so that black people, Hispanic and white, we all feel a part of the community. We're paying taxes, and that I wish the police unions would come out and say, hey, we got some bad apples, but you know, we work for you too, black man. We work for you too, black woman, Hispanic woman, Asian woman, white woman. We want to all protect and all work together. It frustrates me when police unions come out against the Chad Holly beating, you know, like cops beating them, and they protect them. You know, just let the process take its course. I mean, if there's an investigation, there's a trial, and they lose, let them lose. I mean, why should we pay their salaries? And why should we have to let them have 20-year retirement, and we're going to be paying them $5,000 or $10,000 a month for the rest of their life when they are bad apples, when there could be some young, good people who could take those jobs and do the job with integrity and do the job the way it should be done. And that's part of my frustration when I always hear the police union fighting against a city council person or just isolated incidents instead of thinking, hey, take the pride of, we don't want no bad cops. We want to have good cops, and we want to stop them from arresting and harassing people. And think, you know, use some Christian values. I want to treat this person the way I want to be treated. I wouldn't want my son that's 35 to be treated like he's treated. I mean, you know, so that's one of the issues, and I appreciate that. And I want to kind of end the segment talking about police officers' egos and other solutions to dealing with this in society. Do you have any other thing to say, Ms. Porter?
One thing that I know you have called up, I'm glad they're listening. One thing that we need to do, and one thing the young people need to do, is if they want to fight and they want to get it right so they won't get targeted, quit being a target. Change the way you're doing things. Change the way you dress. You know, a lot of times they look at the way we dress. They look at the area you're in. They look at things you're driving, and what you have to do is look at yourself, get yourself in a way. Don't represent the target. Don't be painted as a target, because you make yourself a target once you do certain things a certain way, or when you dress a certain way.
And Ms. Porter, you're exactly right. You're the mother of a young black male, so you can speak about that. And I'm sure you've always told him to dress a certain way. People are profiled, and it's not fair, but it's life. And you know, if I was a police officer, I'd be scared of a boy with baggy pants, looking like a thug, because you know, those baggy pants, you can put some big old weapons in them. So I mean, I'm not mad at police officers for frisking kids that look scary, because they want to go home to their families too. You know, the reason why we want to bring some of these topics out and talk about them, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Last week we talked about an aggravated robbery, a 17-year-old that's doing 20 years for that. But the thing that we want to show is also looking at Mr. Anderson's case today. Now, you know, he's 35 years old, wearing normal pants, normal clothes, visiting a friend. He should not have to had been subjected to that. And we want to
African American.
Yes, and we want to talk about what people have to go through. He could have gone to court 3 times and copped out and done 30 days in jail, which would have been 14 days, or he could have copped out and taken probation and seen a probation officer for a year, paying $65 a month in supervisory fees, paying $100 more a month in fines, going to classes, taking off work, all a cost to him, and all, you know, all a part of the revenue stream. But was that really the right solution in this society? What frustrates me is that so many people get arrested in this society. Thank God, you know, I'm 53 and it's a different time. I mean, it just wasn't like that when I grew up. I mean, in the 70s, and I was in San Antonio, so, you know, maybe that's different. But they just didn't arrest people. If a kid was doing wrong, they might have followed us home. If a kid had some contraband that they shouldn't have had, they throw it away. I mean, they really just went after kids who were the heroin addicts, were the robbers, were the ones who were really dangerous. But they let kids grow up and have a bottle of beer in their car when they shouldn't, and throw it away and just go home. And if I catch you again, I'll take you to jail. And I'm saddened by a society that everything is, what can I get you for? What can I do to him?
Exactly.
And that's frustrating, but it's our community too, and we should make sure that these police officers are accountable, your politicians are accountable, and more importantly, Ms. Porter, your judges are accountable.
Exactly.
And so thank you for calling, and I'm going to let Mr. Ngwolo keep telling us his good story, and please keep listening. Thank you.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, so, I mean, at the end of the day, it was ironic that the same judge who would not give us what we thought was due, which was a suppression.
And let me just talk about that for a moment. When Patrick filed the motion to suppress and went through the evidence, the judge at any point during the trial could have put the jury out and said, out of the room, and said, I grant the motion to suppress because Mr. Anderson's constitutional rights were violated. There's nothing, he had a right to unreasonable search and seizure, he had a right to be left alone, and the police officer overstepped his bounds. The police officer had a hunch, because he was a black male, and thought that he had committed a crime. But once he dealt with him, he hadn't. He could not articulate what he had done. And what's frustrating is that police officers are so used to just grabbing people and arresting them, and people copping out and copping a plea, that they just do it and they've forgotten what the rules are. I mean, the law was written to give them the authority, but the law also has limits and boundaries, and we have to make sure that the police officers stay within those boundaries. And I'm so proud of Patrick as a young lawyer that has actually assisted me in some trials. I'm proud of him, and I want him to keep telling us his story.
Okay. I just thought it was ironic that this judge who would not grant what we thought was just in this matter ended up reading the verdict, not guilty. And
I'm just proud of society. So here we are. We have citizens, females, who listen to this story, listen to the police officer. Patrick, the lawyer, told him that he had a right to be left alone, and he did, even though Mr. Anderson's a big guy. And they came back and said, no, he did not have an illegal contraband, and he did not resist arrest. That's basically what the jury came back and said.
That's what they came back
so
and
what
said.
our citizens said is that, and police officers and prosecutors should pay attention to what our citizens said. When I was a prosecutor, the district attorney was Johnny Holmes at the time, and he taught us to do what you think a jury would do. If you think a jury would find someone not guilty, then you're supposed to dismiss the case, or a judge should have the courage. But people don't have the courage anymore to do the right thing, which is very frustrating.
It's so political now. It's almost like a case, and if I were the prosecutor, and in fact I talked with the prosecutors at length about this case, told them about the holes in their case, gave them Mr. Anderson can tell you numerous times before we got to court. And it just seemed as if they were going to go forth. And I think one of the things that the jury picked up on was they felt like the prosecution was how can I say this, they were trying to persuade them to find not guilty by bringing in facts that weren't even in evidence. And
let me correct you. Persuade them to find him guilty.
Excuse me. Persuade them to find him guilty. And some of the jurors were like, well, hey, we didn't hear that, and we don't believe that should have been a part of this. And some of the jurors were like, wow, I can't believe we were here 5 days on this case, and it seemed like you guys didn't have much of a case to begin with.
And some of the things, that's another thing that worries me. We have so many young prosecutors who don't understand the urban experience. And when I mean the urban experience, I mean the poor man, the black man, the Hispanic man, the poor white person, just the urban experience. I mean, most prosecutors probably don't go visit friends in apartment complexes. They probably all live in a nice neighborhood or whatever. Not all prosecutors. I was a prosecutor, and certainly from a poor environment. But they don't have real life experiences, and sometimes I'm worried that they don't take. Society expects defense lawyers and prosecutors to work these things out, to talk about it and work it out. And what bothers me is the level of immaturity sometimes that, well, I'm just going to get him, I'm just going to get him. And don't get frustrated by the fact that all you see is a bunch of black men down here. You don't even, white men and Hispanic men are visiting their friends in apartment complexes, but they're not sitting in a car, and it goes from sitting in a car to downtown arrested with making $10,000 bonds. Does that happen to the average 35-year-old white guy that's visiting a friend? And what young prosecutors don't realize is that jurors understand that. They understand, because jurors are citizens, and they understand that this is a waste of their time and taxpayers' time when people are not being treated equally. And I wish that prosecutors and young people would look at that a little bit more. I'm going to take a call. Yes, caller.
Yes, I have a question. When you're in a trial, does a judge have the ability to recognize ineffective assistance of counsel? If so, if the judge can recognize ineffective assistance of counsel, can he not at that point chastise or berate an attorney, or at least tell that attorney that you got to at least represent your client in a professional manner?
That's an interesting question. Let me answer that. Let me stop you right there. A judge is a referee. Okay, so let's get the roles straight. Most people think that judges have more power than they do, and that's another reason why I wanted to do this show. So that, because I'll have clients say, "Well, tell the judge to throw it out." The judge doesn't have that power. It's not. They have no power at all. The judge can't say it's thrown out. They can't do that. The prosecutors bring the cases, they file the charges, and the prosecutors dismiss the charges. The judge is the referee. So if Mr. Anderson wants a trial, he goes to trial. His lawyer advocates for his position. The prosecutors advocate for the government's position, for the state, here the police officers, and the judge is ruling. Should evidence come in? Should evidence go out? They're the referee, and so they don't make the decision. When you see in court judges approving plea bargains, it's because they want to make sure that the person understood their constitutional right to a trial. The person their lawyer didn't just force them to plead guilty, got their money and forced them to plead guilty, and they have their last chance to say, hey, I want to exercise my constitutional rights. I didn't understand what my lawyer said. He's making me take this plea. This is the last time to do that. So a judge doesn't have the right to say your lawyer is ineffective. No, they can't do that.
Okay, well, let me ask this question then.
They're the referee.
At what point does malicious prosecution or wrongful prosecution come into play?
That's civil. I'm a board-certified criminal lawyer, which means I'm an expert at criminal. But anytime it talks about malicious prosecution, that is a lawsuit in a civil case to receive money. Okay? Anything that you hear the term civil, that means money is involved. Criminal is your liberty. The government is trying to take your liberty from you, and your lawyer is fighting to maintain your liberty, your freedom.
Right.
Okay. In a criminal case, such as in Mr. Anderson's case, there was no evidence to support even the arrest, let alone the continued prosecution, and then the trial, his continued incarceration. And according to the attorney Ngwolo, the man said the only reason he got him was because he was black. Now, that is malicious prosecution.
I totally agree, and I appreciate your call. Let us keep telling the story, though. Thank you, though.
And so, at the end of the day, I think when you look at it, I think justice was done. But as you said, when you look at the cost of this thing, the cost of Mr. Anderson, the cost of the taxpayers. We had taxpayers hold up, for 5 days. They've got jobs. They've got lives. And so at the end of the day, I think when we have people on the bench, and I pray that Ms. Vivian King makes it to the bench coming soon. But when you have people on the bench who don't understand what justice is, these are the things that have to happen. And thank God that we had a jury that understood the story, that understood what was going on. But I think one of the things I think as citizens, and one of the lessons I learned was, yeah, I'm a lawyer, but I really believe I need to support people who are going to help affect change in our criminal justice system. And so we need judges that understand the law and that understand people. I think you got to understand both. Some people are really stuck, you know, they may understand the law, but just sometimes they don't understand the particular situations that minorities come into. And some people, you know, they understand people. So if it's not the guy, if it's not a guy that looks like them or talks like them, and I've seen this happen. And a judge, maybe a majority judge, sees a guy who's not Caucasian, he's black, he looks at him, nah, no probation for him. But somebody who looks like either his son or one of his friend's sons comes up, probation, but don't you do that again. And we need people on that bench who understand what it means to be, like as you would say, the urban experience, but then also have a measure of compassion, and then also understand the law and know when it's time to throw out a case and have and be courageous enough to do so.
Hello?
Yes, let me take this call. Talk to us.
Hello, I'm calling
And turn your music or turn the show down so we can hear you because it's echoing, please. Thank you.
a lot of people are calling in talking about what do we do. If everybody has a part to play, jurors have the part to play, but if you live in the neighborhoods like I do, and you see this going on, you can't shake your head and walk by and say, oh, this should stop. You need to go in and make a complaint. You need to file a report. The same officers patrol the same beats in the same areas. If you see an officer getting rough with kids, or if you see an officer stop a group of kids for no reason at all, your complaint might be available for one of the defense attorney's subpoenas that officers file, and that might help show, they might be able to later call you as a witness to show, hey, this officer didn't have a reason to stop him, but if you walk by and you do nothing to help. So I need people, this is T.I., I would like people to, all of us, we need to do our part. You got to say something. You got to step up and step up for the kids. If you want your community to be different, you have to do more than shake your head and be disgusted by the way it is.
I agree with you, Tiava, and I appreciate you calling in. I would love a criminal justice system where it's not herded out like cattle and it's 5,000 people walking through the doors every day and everybody's considered a case. I mean, Mr. Anderson went to court 13 times. I'm sure it took him an hour to get through security. I'm sure it was 60 people in there with 3 prosecutors. That's just too much. I mean, we have over-prosecuted this system, and it's too many people that don't understand the urban experience. I mean, there was a different way to deal with this. I mean, they could have asked him, was he the one looking in cars? If so, leave the apartment complex. It wasn't him. Did he have to be arrested? I mean, he's talking noise to the officer, but just trying to understand, why can't I be left alone? Why are you bothering me? And the officer says that's resisting arrest. I mean, that is awful. I mean, resisting arrest is when an officer is trying to handcuff you for a crime that he saw you commit, or that he has a probable cause to believe you committed it. Like it's bruised on your girlfriend, and she's called in a complaint, and he's being arrested for family violence, and he's turned around and hitting the officer and stopping the officer. Resisting arrest is not even pulling away. Right. The Court of Criminal Appeals said, you know, even if you pull your arm away, that's not resisting arrest. That's a natural instinct to a man trying to encage another man in a handcuff. So resisting arrest has to be, you have to use force against that officer for trying to arrest you. So he would have had to turn around and deck that man. It's not even an accident. Right. You know, because sometimes when officers are taking you to the ground, they might get bruised just like you got bruised. That's not resisting arrest. They took this man to the ground. And that's what's bothersome about me, that a 35-year-old man, working man, black man, ends up having a nice afternoon with his girlfriend's mother, visiting as a buddy, trying to get home on a Sunday night so he can go to work the next day, or Saturday night. It was a Saturday night. Yeah, right. And he ends up in jail for 2 days and $10,000 later. I mean, that is so unfair.
And you never get some of that back. You don't get your time. You don't get your money.
Right, but thank God he got his freedom and he has his name cleared, and thank God we had a young lawyer out there fighting for him, and I'm glad we were able to tell that story. But if people are listening out here, I guess the lesson here is to fight. If you're not guilty, fight the case. Don't just take probation. Don't just do time served and pay a fine. That's right. I mean, if he would have paid a fine for the illegal contraband he was accused of saying, his driver's license would have been suspended for a year. So that means, and then he would have had to pay the state of Texas $3,000 for surcharges to get his license back. Another target to the minority community. You know, who has $3,000? I don't have $3,000 to pay for surcharges. You know, that's a lot of money. And so he can't drive his car, but yet he has to get to work every day. So, you know, society can't have it like that. We can't have it both ways. We have to be fair to people, and police officers have to step aside sometimes with their sensitivity training and say, now, if he was a white man, would I arrest him? I mean, I would like officers to sometimes think about that. If this was, I mean, let my ego out of this. If this was, let him go. You've searched him, which you shouldn't have done, because he could have a gun in his car. It's okay to have a gun in your car if it's concealed. So that wouldn't have been illegal. So, you know, why are you picking on this man? He didn't brandish a gun or do anything wrong, and I think society could have dealt with this differently. The taxpayers could have gone to work. They had to take off work, where no productivity for them. And I want them to come down and actually look at meritorious cases where there's really something. And I think the guardians of our judicial system have let it go awry. And I want things to change. And we need more minority judges that understand what's going on, that are not afraid to say something is wrong here. Thank you for your call.
Vivian, I want to ask you a question on the issue of judges. What do you think, why do you think this case went so long without a judge making a ruling and allowing it to get to the jury?
I think that you were dealing with a visiting judge that wants to keep her job, and that's a nice person. That means no harm, but, you know, Mr. Anderson's just not important to her. I mean, it's just another case. And we're all shuttled down there like cattle. And, I mean, a lot of officers know how to lie and create probable cause or what they might believe is probable cause. But in this case, this officer basically just said he was black. We were looking for a black guy looking in cars. But what they didn't think about is that it's not illegal to look in cars. That's why officers get to look in your car. That's why officers they can be where a regular citizen can be. They can look, it's nothing wrong with looking through somebody's window as long as you haven't breached their gate that's closed. I mean, you might not like it, but it's not illegal to look in cars. You can go by an apartment complex and look inside every car that's in there, and you have not broken the law. Just like the police officer can.
That's true.
So that's no reason to detain him, and it was an illegal detention, and I wish judges were not afraid to say it was an illegal detention, and then officers would not waste taxpayers' money by arresting black men that they think are insignificant. His life, Mr. Anderson's life is important to me, and it's important to Patrick, and hopefully it'll be important to the citizens. Let's take one more call. Yes, please. Yes, caller.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, my son has served almost 7 years of a 10-year aggravated robbery case.
Yes,
he has been in a trustee for the last 2.5 years. He's received 2 set-offs, and now he's facing his 3rd parole in February. He works in a camp facility that's about 5 miles from the prison. He's sent out every day at 4 o'clock, and he's out there by himself. He's trusted to be alone.
I'm gonna have to make it quick. We have 4 minutes, so try to make it quick, ma'am. I'm listening though.
Okay. He's a trustee, and he's working as a trustee.
What's the question?
How long should he serve? I mean,
when a person is given a 10-year sentence, they're supposed to serve the whole 10 years. Because our parole board, our prisons are full, they're eligible for parole in half the time. So at 5 years, he had his first parole hearing. He's been set off 2 other times, and he could actually serve the whole 10 years. It depends on the parole board and the availability of space and whether they want to let him out. But there is no rules. It's under the governor. The parole board reports to the governor, and if the governor says be tough on sexual assaults, they'll make them do the whole time, or aggravated robberies. Aggravated robberies are the toughest crimes right now, and the parole board makes the decisions at the direction of the governor, who our governor is Governor Perry. I wish you luck, and I hope that you can find a good parole lawyer to put a good package together for your son, and I wish you luck. Wish you luck. Thank you for calling. So let's try to wrap this up. Mr. Anderson, what do you want to say about your experience? Thankfully, it turned out good for you. Is there anything that you want to say just in wrapping this up? Maybe to young people in your situation, or just anything you want to say about the system. I want to give you 1 minute to wrap it up and say something. And then I'll give you the same 1 minute, Patrick.
Well, I've been through something now that I realized that in my case, I couldn't afford a lawyer. So, you know, I was lucky, right, unfortunately, you know, that I could afford Patrick. I mean, they got some people out there that can't afford a lawyer that goes through this same thing I go through every day. I mean, you know, I feel for those people.
And then they get a record.
They get a record. I mean, their whole life is down here after that. I mean, they're innocent. You know, innocent people just, you know, going to jail daily. Right. They can't afford a lawyer. So, you know, I want to thank God for, you know, being able to keep me firm, and, you know, to where I can have a job, and just, you know, just in incidents like that, for, you know.
God bless you, and I'm so glad that you fought it and that God did bless you with a job, and I hope you continue to keep a job. Thank you for being on my program and sharing your story, because it takes courage to share your story. So thank you for doing that. Can you make a little wrap-up statement, please?
I am thankful to be here tonight, and thankful to Robert for giving me the opportunity to fight for his justice. And I hope that, you know, people who are looking at this show, and we get the word out and continue to let people know that justice is available. We just got to fight for it.
That's right.
Right, and I want the listeners to understand that we want to do what's right. There are a lot of lawyers out there fighting for your constitutional right to be treated fairly. Your lives are important to us. There are people that think you're just a number and that you're just cattle, and I'm here to tell you that your life is important. I want you to do right. I don't want young people robbing during this holiday season. I want you to consider the person that you might want to rob or jack. That could be your mother or your grandmother. But I also want the police officers to try to treat black men fairly. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Mr. Anderson deserved to be treated fairly in this situation, and he wasn't treated fairly. But luckily, he had a good lawyer, and he had fair jurors and fair citizens that told the police officers he had the right, under our Constitution, to be left alone. And hopefully you'll tune in to see us next Wednesday live from 6:30 to 7:30, where we bring you another true crime story. It'll be something that just happened in the courthouse, and someone might be afraid to talk about it, but we'll come out here and we'll talk about compelling issues. Thank you for watching. And that's it.